that they don't break the whole system. They want to make sure it works. Who knows how long that's going to take? I keep checking my questions on Canvas, and they still are kind of screwed up. So what I'm going to probably do is what I mentioned before, is that I'll just get an online quiz thing account and create a quiz on this website called Flexi Quiz. Seems to be the best one from what I could tell. And put something on there and just send out a link. But I got to create the quiz all over again, so that's going to take me a little time. So I apologize for that. But so that's in the works. The second thing is anyone having problems with the discussion board? Is everything going fine? Are you able to post and then reply to other people's posts? You are? Okay. Because, you know, I haven't, honestly, this is the first time I've used Canvas's discussion board. I've used it on Blackboard and stuff like that, other learning software, but not on Canvas. So could go great, could be a disaster. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, if it's going good, then fine. Okie dokie. Ms. Moses. Oh, and for those of you who came in late, I got candy for you, so for St. Valentine's Day. Where are you? Alrighty. So I put up a video on YouTube, so take a look at for Tuesday. So take a look at that. Hopefully you've looked at it already, but if you haven't, take a look at it. And so I'll be moving on. Today I'm talking about the god Shiva. I'm talking about the Trimurti in general, which if you don't know what that is, that's probably because you haven't watched the video, but the Trimurti, the three main gods of Hinduism, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Although Brahma is not so main of a god anymore. We don't really know why. But now I'm going to talk about Shiva, the destroyer, the third of the three gods. Shiva the destroyer, his consort is the goddess Kali. The name Shiva in Sanskrit means favorable. Favorable. And between the two gods, Vishnu and Shiva, as I tell you in the video on Tuesday, or told you in the video on Tuesday, the two main gods that are worshipped amongst Hindus are Vishnu and Shiva. And Vishnu by far has the most devotees at around like almost 70%. Shiva has the next most after Vishnu with 26.6% of Hindus claiming him as the supreme being. So it's about 70-30, although, of course, there are other Hindus who would claim that the goddess, the Devi, is the supreme being, and so that would cut into those numbers. But generally speaking, it's about a 70-30 split, Vishnu versus Shiva. Shiva's strongest numbers are in southern India, where Aryan influence was late. If you were reading the chapter and I was listening to the chapter, I copied the pages, and so I listened to them when I have a long drive here. So I don't have time to physically read the book, so I listened to the book like an audio book. And I was listening to the textbook, and yeah, Shiva seems to have been a god that may have pre-existed the Aryans. So it's not surprising that his influence would be in southern India, because the Aryans came in the north and they kind of pushed the indigenous peoples down to the south. Okay, so the god Shiva would have gone with them. Okay, and Vishnu is a Vedic god, as mentioned in the Vedas. So it's not surprising that he would be more popular in the northern areas where the Aryans were influential. So Shiva's strongest influence is in southern India. He's an ancient god, but he's an ambiguous god. He's kind of like a uniter of opposites. In the Mahabharata, the epic, the Mahabharata, the story of the Bharata family, he is depicted as the possible creator of Brahma and Vishnu, and he's worshipped by the other gods. Okay. Around the 1100s AD, the 1100s AD, the 12th century, Shiva starts to be depicted in this form as a cosmic dancer, as you see in the picture, surrounded in a ring of fire. Okay, so he's the embodiment of cosmic energy, the energy of the cosmos, of the universe, the rhythm, you could say, at the heart of existence. But it's also this fire that he uses to bring about the end of the cosmos, to destroy the cosmos at the end of the age. And there are several ages throughout the history of the cosmos, many ages, as we'll learn later, and they all repeat, and because time is a cycle, everything kind of starts over again. But you have these long periods of time, and at the end of each period, there's a period of destruction, and I want to say peace, but it's not really the word I'm looking for. Stasis, I guess you could say, of rest is a better word, before the next age starts everything all over again. So he brings that about, dancing in fire, and he brings about the universe is destroyed by his fire. So Shiva is a uniter, as I said, of opposites. He's a reconciler of oppositions. So he's the God in which all opposites meet and are resolved into a unity, often violently, almost like splitting the atom in a way. It's like almost like an atomic bomb. It's these two like matter and antimatter. If they meet in the universe, they watch out. It's kind of like that God where you bring opposites, good and bad, and these types of things, light and dark. He is both the destroyer and the recreator of life. He is a terrible God, a terrifying God, yet he's a mild God. He's a nice God. He's meek, gentle. He is both ceaseless activity, dancing and dancing, dancing in the ring of fire, but he's also the period of rest in between the different time cycles, eternal rest. He is the source of both good and evil, Mr. Citrigno. Yes, he is, you might say, the source, Mr. Clyde, of dark chocolate and white chocolate. That is Shiva. Yes. Hot, spicy, and sweet. You know what I'm saying? He is characterized by fertility and procreation, yet he is also kind of an ascetic. He is chaste, meaning, which people usually take to mean that you don't have sex. Chastity doesn't mean you don't have sex. You can be married people and you're called a chastity. Chastity just means that you don't view the other person or the other person. Yeah, you don't view the other person as a sexual object, an object solely of pleasure. That's what chastity is getting at. You view them as a person. So he is, at the one hand, he's a chaste God, but he's also a sexually active God. Okay? His symbol is the phallus. And I guess it's too early in the day to mention penises, but there you go. I said it. All right? Yeah, see, his symbol is the erect penis. So don't be surprised if you go to a temple of Shiva that you see that depicted. Okay, this is the most common symbol you'll see of Shiva, which is the lingam and the yoni. Lingam and the yoni. This bottom circular portion is the yoni, and the lingam is this. You don't need much of an imagination to figure out what's going on. Anyways, the lingam would symbolize the phallus, and the yoni would symbolize like the uterus of the woman. So the phallus penetrating the vagina or going into the uterus of the woman. So that's because Shiva is kind of an ascetic, and he's often depicted that way as kind of not a guru, as a holy man, performing in the yogic posture with his legs crossed, naked, meditating and stuff like that, and chaste, as I said. He builds up, because he's not using it, he builds up a lot of sexual energy. So when it's unleashed, watch out, I guess Shiva gets horny, sometimes it has to be unleashed. So that's how I guess the phallus became the symbol for him. And lingam would be, from Sanskrit, would be the word for a phallus, and yoni is the word for the female organs, reproductive organs. Interesting though. It looks like when God gave, he gave with both hands to Shiva. You know what I'm saying, Mr. Holstein? So you will see this a lot at Hindu temples, and That's all I'm going to say about that. What more do I want to say? Okay. I already said that. He is oh, okay. Yeah. Again, like a lot of Hindu gods, that then there are the arm. People might always wonder about Hindu gods and why are there so many arms and stuff like that. And it's really a symbol of their power. If you have a lot of arms, it means you're very powerful. Like I think there's a statue. I think it's of Vishnu. I know that always makes me laugh. Vishnu. Anyways, I think it's a statue of Vishnu in India where it's the god of 1,000 hands, and it has like I don't know if it has exactly 1,000 hands, but whoever carved the statue gave him like 1,000 hands to just show how all powerful the god is. So that's why they have many arms. But also you have many arms because each god has all sorts of instruments and implements that he carries. Okay, so like in the textbook it mentions that. I think this is Vishnu, carries like a discus, he carries a lotus flower, a conch, which is a shell, a seashell, and they carry all sorts of other things in their hands, the gods, depending on which god it is. So they need multiple arms to, hold them anyways, okay? So that's what's going on with all the arms. A person who follows Shiva is called a Shaivite. A Shaivite. It also says in your textbook that it can be called Shaivas, a Shaivas. But when I first was doing my studies, the book I was using called them Shaivites, so I'll go with that. Shaivas, and those who follow Vishnu are called Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas. And Shaivas. And just like the person who, the other picture I showed you of a Shaivite with the tree Kundra on the forehead, and they put other symbols on their body and stuff to indicate which god they follow. This gentleman, you have the horizontal lines, 3 horizontal lines, which would indicate that he's a follower of Shiva as his main god. So a Shaivite, a devotee of the god Shiva. Then finally, we have the goddess, who, as I indicated on Tuesday and indicated on my picture of the Trimurti, I made the circle of the Durga as large as Shiva's circle, just to indicate that, and for some followers of Hinduism, the goddess is considered a supreme being and is as powerful as the male gods and even more powerful in some ways. So what is the Durga? Well, Durga is technically the consort, or you could say the goddess girlfriend of Shiva. And the Durga goes by many names. Durga, Devi, which means female god. It's the female form for God. Write that on the board. Deva is a male god in Sanskrit. A Deva and Devi is a female god. So sometimes it's just called the Devi. Parvati or Parvati, Shakta is another name, and then Kali, it's kind of the personification. This goddess Kali is the personification of the Durga. The Durga is seen as the universe's creative power or energy, which is conceived not as male, but as female. And maybe that makes sense because, women are creative. Women, you can see that in the natural world. Women get pregnant and they create children. So it's maybe not such a stretch if you think about it in just a naturalistic way, that people would see that as, the universe creates things, come out of the universe and are made from the universe, and they see that kind of connection with the female because women get pregnant. So the female in this view, in the view of those who follow the Durga, see the female as more active and creative and dynamic, whereas the male is the passive and the receptor from the point of view of those who follow the Durga, who are called Shaktas. So you have Vaishnavas, Shaivas, and then you have people who follow the Durga who are called Shaktas, because the power of the universe is sometimes called Shakti. Shakti. I lost somebody. Uh-oh. It's called the Shakti, the female power of the universe. So they're called Shaktas. And where does Durga come from? Where do they? Because these are three. Scholars see the Durga as kind of like an amalgamation of female deities, of goddesses. It's not one thing, actually. The Durga first appears in this legend of the Mahishasura. And did I just give me 1 second here? I want to see if I get that. Oh, that's with Kali. Okay, all right, fine. I'll get to that when I talk about Kali. First appears in the legend of Mahishasura, which I have a picture of here, I believe. Yes. Okay, the water buffalo god. A Mahisha is the word for a water buffalo. Mahish. Asura, and an Asura is a demon, the name for a demon or a devil, or say a bad god. I forget how, but anyways, there's the battle. She battles with this buffalo demon. Mahishasura is like a shapeshifter demon, also another one, who takes the form of a buffalo. And he fasted and prayed continuously, standing on one foot for many years, and he built up incredible spiritual energy that reached across from heaven to the underworld. So he became very powerful through these ascetical exercises. The god Brahma took notice of this. I mentioned this in the lecture on Tuesday. But Brahma always seems to be causing trouble. He keeps giving these boons, these spiritual gifts to demons. I don't know. Maybe that's why he's so little worshipped. But anyways, the god Brahma takes notice of this and grants Mahishasura's wish, which is that no man or god could kill him. So none of the gods could kill him ultimately. Well, Mahishasura gathers a demon army and starts to terrorize human beings. He attacks the city of the gods and takes it over, and the gods have to flee for their lives. If gods have lives, they're gods. What are they afraid of? What can he do? Anyways, so they flee for their lives, and they go into exile. What to do? Well, they make a female. The gods come together, the three gods of the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva come together, and they create this goddess Durga, who, of course, is a god. She's not really a god. She's not a deva. She's a devi, and she's not a man. She's a woman. She's a female, and so she is able to defeat and kill Mahishasura, which you see in that picture there. She has tons of arms. And so she kills him by cutting off his head. And so she is sometimes called, Durga is sometimes called the Mahishasura Mardini, the killer of Mahishasura. Here's a little television show or a televised movie version of this battle. This is Durga with her many arms and her weapons fighting against Mahishasura. There are the gods watching. They can't do nothing.
सुंदरी जितनी सुंदर है उतनी अजीब तूने महाबली महिषासुर के साथ शत्रुता करके भूल की है। उन्होंने नारी समझकर तुझ पर अब तक प्राणांतक प्रहार नहीं किया, किंतु मैं महाबली का दूत चिक्सोल तुझ पर दया नहीं करूंगा। ले भुगत अपनी दुष्टता का परिणाम। तूने जिक्सूर का अंत कर दिया, विद्वान असीलों तेरा अंत कर देगा। अब तुझे नहीं छोड़ूंगा। ये ले।
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
सुंदरी, अब मैं तुझे समाप्त करके ही रहूंगा।
मेरा अंतिम प्रहार तुझे जीवित ही नहीं छोड़ेगा। यदि अपने प्राणों का मोह है तो अपने साथियों के साथ पाताल लोक चला जा।
नहीं, कदापि नहीं। अब मैं एक से बड़े लेकर तेरे टुकड़े टुकड़े कर दूंगा।
All right, then we got like 5 minutes of her dancing, so I'll move on. But you get the point. She finally kills Mahishasura by cutting off his head, and there she turns into Kali. She turns from the Durga to the goddess Kali. But actually, Kali comes later in the story. Durga is married off to Shiva and becomes his wife. And then she gets the name Parvati, or Parvati is she's sometimes called. I put that there, Parvati. Sometimes they add an A and call her Parvati. Do I have that? Yeah, there she is right there. That's a picture of Parvati, which means she of the mountains because her father was a mountain king. But Dr. Dunn, didn't you just say that she was created by Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva kind of putting their minds together and creating Durga out of nothing? And yes, contradiction, just go with it. But apparently Parvati is the daughter of a mountain king, so her name means she of the mountains. Where does Kali come from? Kali is this really, the name you see there, the word in Sanskrit simply means black, which is why you saw that she's in a black color. She's covered in black, or she's black from head to toe with black skin. Kali also means time, can also mean time in Sanskrit, and she's associated with the city of Calcutta. Maybe you've heard of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who's now Saint Teresa of Calcutta, or Kolkata as it's now called, which is the city of Kali. It's dedicated to Kali. It has her name in it, Kolkata. But she is, well, anyways, that's another. Where does she come from? Well, for that, we have to go to another legend, which is the legend of Raktabija. This is another demon. Raktabija is another demon who also, through his efforts, is able to gain a boon, a spiritual gift from Brahma. You guessed it, our friend Brahma again. Okay. What's up with this dude? You know, I don't know. Is he getting high up in the Himalayas or something? Like, okay, I'll give you a boon to destroy the world. I don't know what's going on with Brahma, but anyways, I don't know where his heads are. But he gives this boon to Raktabija that any drop of Raktabija's blood would produce another like him with equal power. So if you cut him, then his blood fell to the earth, that all the drops of blood would raise up new Raktabijas with equal power, just so he'd be unstoppable in a way. And that's what his name means. Rakta means blood, and Bija means seed or drop. So he fights the Durga, who is now Parvati. Durga, a.k.a. Parvati, is sent to fight Raktabija with a group of other mother goddesses, and they can't defeat him. He's just too powerful with this boon that he's been given by Brahma. So Parvati frowns out of anger at Raktabija, and out of this frown, out of her forehead, comes Kali, this new goddess, who is very ferocious and very nasty and terrifying. And Kali goes on a killing frenzy. She goes around lapping up all the blood, even before it can reach the ground, as she's cutting Raktabija, and before his blood can even reach the ground, she's lapping up his blood and eating eating the copies. If anything does fall on copies of him, so she eats them, the other little Raktabijas, and then finally she kills Raktabija. However, Kali is out of control, and she starts killing everything in her path. And so Shiva, in order to try to stop her, decides, Mr. Henley, to lay down in front of her on the ground to stop her. And when she inadvertently hits Shiva, she is embarrassed and starts to calm down. Also, Shiva has sex with her, which also calms her down. There is the sexual element in Hinduism, but just got to go with it. So sometimes you'll see statuary of Kali and Shiva having sex after the killing of Raktabija. So she is a ferocious and powerful goddess, and she stands for the frightening and painful side of life, as scholars interpret her meaning. Kali is first mentioned as a distinct goddess around 600 AD in a book called the Devi Mahatmyam. I want to see if I just put that in the PowerPoint. I did not, but I'll write it on the board. This book with Devi Mahatmyam. Which dates to around the 600 BC is when Kali first appears as a separate goddess. Devi, as you know, means goddess, the female word for God in Sanskrit. And Mahatmyam means glory. So literally the name of the book, the Devi Mahatmyam, is the glory of the goddess. And so it tells legends and stories about the manifestations of this female power of the universe, the goddess. So and then in the Mahatmyam, it describes the goddess as the supreme power and the creator of the universe. Kali is the devourer of time, and she is the night of rest and peace between the world cycles. As I said, because her name means black or darkness, so she's typically portrayed as black and naked with a necklace of human heads, and sometimes a belt of severed arms. You saw that in the video. They showed the severed arms, that she cut off from the Raktabijas. I'd have to look it up. But anyways, nevertheless, she usually has fangs and her hair is disheveled and flowing. It's not finely combed. She's out of control. She's usually shown as out of control. Human sacrifice used to be made to Kali, but now people, if they do this, usually just offer goats. All right, so she's an interesting goddess. And there she is in this picture holding the head of Raktabija, whose blood is pouring out. Okay. What is the purpose of life for Hinduism? The purpose of life, the Purusharthas. Okay, the four goals of life for a Hindu person. Typically, when I say a Hindu person, I should say that these are male-oriented, so these are usually the purposes of life for a male person. But the Purusharthas, that's the name for from Sanskrit for the purpose of life. The first part, Purusha, means person in Sanskrit, and an artha is a goal. It also can mean advantage or wealth. Maybe wealth is its original meaning, and goal is its more symbolic, conceptual meaning. But so the goal of the person, Purushartha, the purpose of life. And there are four purposes of life for the Hindu. The first one is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. We'll talk about each one in turn. We'll start with Dharma. Dharma, as I've already told you, is the order underlying the universe, the foundation of the cosmos that makes existence in it possible. Okay? Essentially orderliness of the universe. How it works. It's supposed to work. And it comes from the Sanskrit word dhar, which means to hold or uphold something. Okay, so you get the idea of a foundation. Something upholds something else. Dharma, as you also know, has a number of meanings. It can be interpreted as law or duty, duty. I talked about on Tuesday that when we talked about the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's dharma, his duty as a warrior, was to kill people and to defend and to kill, which might involve killing, I should say. Can also mean the ritual used in the sacrifice. So dharma describes behaviors that are appropriate to the maintenance of the order and custom of the universe. Originally, the word dharma applied to the performance of the ritual and religious rules, the rules of the sacrifice. That was the dharma, the order. You had to follow the proper order. Okay? And in fact, if you read the textbook, it mentions the fact that the god Ganesh, the elephant-headed god, is appealed to at the beginning of a sacrifice to protect the ritual so that nothing goes wrong. Because if you do perform the ritual incorrectly, you might anger or offend the god, and that's not a good thing. Then you won't get what you want, and you might even be punished by the god. So that's what it originally seems to have meant. But with the Brahmanas that come later and interpret the Vedas, the Brahmanas, it comes to envisage an ethical component to Dharma as the rules that govern a society, the order that one brings to a society. And so you have the Dharma Shastras, the law books, the books written specifically to comment on what is the Dharma proper to people and proper to society. In the Upanishads, Dharma comes to be interpreted as a way for attaining Brahman. Following your Dharma is the way to attain Brahman, the ultimate source of existence. Okay, so that's something that you want to do. That's part of the purpose of life, to follow the order of the universe, the Dharma that's given to you. So at your age right now, you are a student, that's your Dharma, and that's the order and custom that you're to be dedicated to, your studies and doing well, not towards having another job or raising a family. Those come later according to the view of Hindu life, when you're a householder. But right now, at the beginning, you're a student, so that's your Dharma. So you follow these stages of Dharma, and your Dharma can change. Now you're a student, later you'll be a householder with a family and a job, then later you become a renouncer, where you kind of remove yourself to the forest and begin to become more religious and study religious texts, and then finally you become like a monk or an ascetic begging for food. Okay, those are considered the traditional dharmas of life, or I should say they're ashramas, but the other purpose of life is artha. Artha, which we already know means goal, and so artha is goal-oriented activity. So working at a job, starting a family, okay, these are seen as the objects of artha. So it's pretty simple idea, make money, be successful, okay. The other goal of life is love, kama. Comes from the Sanskrit word kam, which means to desire something. And it means love, but it doesn't mean love in general. It has a very specific meaning of sexual pleasure and eroticism. So it does have that root meaning of sexual pleasure, having sex. However, it can be used in an extensive sense as aesthetic endeavor, so artistic endeavor, as a love, or in that way you might describe it more as a passion. Okay, you have a passion for something. You have a calm for something. So again, having the biological need to have children, okay, to raise up progeny, kama, through sexual action. Kama is personified as a god. You can see him here in this picture as a little boy god, blue, dark skin, so he's a little boy god. He rides on a cuckoo bird or a parrot. That is his vehicle because, a god needs wheels, needs a car. And he carries a bow of sugarcane with a string of bees and a quiver of flower-tipped arrows. So let's see, a god of love who has a bow and arrow. Does that sound familiar? Who does that sound like? Cupid, the Roman god Cupid. I'm trying to remember what his Greek name is in Greek mythology. Eros. But yeah, Cupid. So who knows? I mean, I don't know if there's any connection, but a lot of times you find the symbolology in religions and cultures, they cross-pollinate, and somehow, these ideas, I think there might be some influence. I don't know who influenced whom, but it is interesting that you have this Mediterranean god of love, who is also shown as, kind of a pubescent boy with an arrow, and here he's also shown as a young boy with an arrow who shoots people with his arrows to make them fall in love. This picture is showing the myth of what happened to Kama because he was distracting Shiva, who was in meditation. He was distracting Shiva with sexual thoughts. And Shiva got angry, and with his third eye, he sent out a beam of light and burned Kama to death. Kama's wife begs Shiva to bring him back to life, which Shiva does, but he will not bring him back physically as a god. Again, he brings him back as a mental image, hence he's called Kama the bodiless. In the Mahabharata, in case you're curious, book 12, 167, the Mahabharata, there is a discussion about, I think one of the rulers asks, which is the greatest of the goals of life? 167, which is the greatest of the goals of life? Following Dharma, doing your duty. Is it Kama? Is it love? Is it Artha? Is it gaining wealth? Is it moksha, liberation? All these things. What of the four purposes of life, which is the greatest? And one of the persons finally responds that no, Kama is the greatest of the purposes of life because it's the source of the other goals of life. Because without love, human beings don't strive for anything. So there's some wisdom there. Without a passion or love for something, you don't do anything. The religious holy man doesn't do his meditation. He does it because he loves it. The ultimate reason for it is love. The householder doesn't set up a family and work at his job just because, but he loves doing this. He has desire to do this. So desire, or Kama, is the foundation. So according to the Mahabharata, Kama is the source of the other goals. The last of the goals is moksha. Moksha, which means liberation or freedom. We'll talk more about moksha later. So you want to, ultimately, one of the goals of life is to achieve liberation from the cycle of life and death. That's what you want to do. That should be one of your goals in every life, to achieve liberation. And that's kind of what Hinduism as a religion is trying to help people to do over their multiple lifetimes. Because they believe in reincarnation. People come back again and again. Eventually you want that cycle to end. You want to achieve moksha. And this picture shows kind of a symbolic, it's kind of like a parable in picture form of this idea. The elephant is the Atman, the personal self, which is being kept weighed down by its sins, its bad karma in this life. And this life is represented by this pond, and your sins are represented by this crocodile, which is biting down on its leg and keeping it from getting out of the pond. And here you have the god, I think it's Vishnu, helping you, giving a flower to help you out of this endless cycle of death and rebirth. I don't know who this is. I don't know. Obviously, it's another god, but I don't know who it is. So it's a little parable about, someone drew a little picture to kind of show this idea of moksha, of liberation. I've mentioned this before, and I'll talk about it more in depth now. The Atman. I talked about when we talked about Vedantic literature and the Upanishads, where the Atman, the personal self, is identified with the ultimate reality, or one and the same. There is no real individuality. That is an illusion. We see ourselves as individuals, but really our Atmans are all united to the ultimate reality. And if that's the case, then we are all really the same. There is no individuality between any of us. We are all one together and not many. Why do we see ourselves as many? Because we delude ourselves. Need more chocolate? There's more chocolate up here if you want it. Need a sugar rush? No. Anyway. Don't you hate it when I learn your names? Right? Anyways, learn about you. Oh, yes. What is the Atman? Well, as I've already told you, it's the permanent self. I probably shouldn't say individual self because really it's we're all united in Brahman, so I can't really say that. I think that's wrong on my PowerPoint. But it comes from the Sanskrit word, which ultimately is the word for breath, essence. And this seems to be a commonality in a lot of religions because you find the same thing where the soul or the spirit of the human person is described. Just really comes from the word breath, breathing. You could say the life force. It's the same thing in the Bible, ruach, which is usually translated as soul or spirit in English, simply means the act of breathing. And you see this in a lot of religions, that the soul is identified with just simply the act of taking air into our bodies. And that's what spirit means as well. Spiritus in Latin means to breathe. So the same thing here with Atman comes from the Sanskrit, which means breath. More conceptually, it means the essence of a thing. And the Atman is the real or the true self, which only underlies the human appearance. So how you appear to yourself is not really what the Atman is. It's what underlies that appearance of yourself. There's no sense of the Atman in the Vedas. In the Rig Veda, for example, Atman means only breath. Or by extension, it means the whole body as opposed to its parts. And sometimes it's even used as a reflexive pronoun, like yourself, like it just refers to the whole totality of the human person. It's only later in the Aranyakas and the Upanishads that an attempt is made to define Atman more precisely. What is the self? And according to the Upanishads, Atman is the vital force of all things, human, animal, mineral, godlike, etc. And it is necessarily identical with Brahman, the ultimate reality. But Brahman is essentially spiritual. Brahman is not material. And since Brahman cannot become entangled in the world of matter or contingency means that something is not the source of its own existence. Well, Brahman is. Brahman is simply exists. So it can't become contingent. It can't become limited in its existence because it is the source of existence. It is existence. It would be self-contradictory to what Brahman is. So since Brahman cannot become material and can't become contingent, since it's necessary for its own existence, there has to be something that bridges the gap between Atman, Brahman, and the material world. Because remember, Atman and Brahman are one and the same, according to the Upanishads. And this is where the idea of a jiva enters in. Jiva is kind of like what you might call a personality. It's a self-independent state of Atman, which, don't forget, is an illusion. Only the Atman is truly real. The jiva is kind of how the Atman presents itself in the material world, which is an illusion. So this is, sometimes in older writings you'll see Atman, or you'll read Atman translated as soul, and that's really incorrect. Jiva should be more properly translated as the soul, because Jiva is kind of like the soul. It's the life force. It's the manner in which the Atman interacts with the world. Okay, I'll give you that quote. We'll get to that in a second. So it's the jiva that becomes entangled with the created material world, and that's what binds us to multiple deaths and rebirths. We kind of become imprisoned in the material world through the jiva, and having this illusion that the jiva is our true self. Our material self is our true self and not our Atman. This is a concept that is nearly universal throughout all forms of Indian religion, that there is a cycle of death and rebirth, that we keep coming back, we keep going out of existence, coming back to existence, this flow of life, that our Atman flows through life through multiple existence. So you find this in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, okay, all these religions that derive from the land of India. Okay, so the Atman travels through this cycle of birth, death, and then rebirth, but the Atman itself is eternal. Okay, it doesn't die ever, and it's unaffected by death or rebirth, but it keeps coming back in a bodily form. It's kind of enslaved by the jiva, its entanglement with the world. What will release the Atman from this endless cycle of death and rebirth is when it realizes what it truly is. It gets past the illusion of the jiva and thinking that this physical body is its true self and is the reality, and realizes that what really it is the ultimate reality, which is Brahman, Tattvamasi, remember from the Upanishads. So here's a quote from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad number 4. Do anyone want to read that for us from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad? Go ahead, Mr. Irvin.
Just from the top.
Yeah.
Two birds, inseparable friends, cling to the same tree. One of them eats the sweet fruit, the other looks on without eating. On the same tree, man sits grieving, immersed, bewildered by his own innocence. But when he sees the other lord contented, and knows his glory, then his grief passes away.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. So this is kind of comparing the Atman and the Jiva to two birds. Okay, they're friends. Okay, they're inseparable friends, and they're in the same tree. Okay, which is, you. Okay, and the one that looks on without eating would be the Atman. Okay, it's kind of this interested thing, whereas the Jiva is the one that eats the sweet fruit, which would be the illusion of the material world, and the illusion that it is an independent agent in this material world, and that it's not united to Brahman. Okay? Okay. But coming to this knowledge, when the person is able to come to this knowledge of his glory, which is the union with Brahman, then the grief passes away. The person is no longer grieved by being attached to this world of desire and pain and suffering. It all passes away and you reach liberation. But you have to understand your true self. This cycle of death and rebirth, of being born, dying, and being reborn again, is called samsara in Sanskrit. The Hindu cosmology, as I tell you on Tuesday in the lecture, on the video, cosmology is a theory of the universe, of the cosmos, of how it works. And the Hinduism's theory of the universe is cyclical. That it's just like in human life where you die and are reborn, so the universe goes through cycles of time where it's destroyed and it comes back, and then it's destroyed again and it comes back again. So time begins and ends over and over forever. And this is called samsara, the never-ending cycle of death and rebirth based on karma. In Sanskrit, samsara means wandering, to wander around. It's going, it's which kind of gives you an idea of something about samsara, that it's purposeless. There is no rhyme or reason to it. It's just the way things are. There's no purpose to it. Even the gods are subject to samsara. Samsara is sometimes called transmigration. To migrate means to move from one place to another. Trans means across, so you're moving from one period of time to another, or from one existence to another. So transmigration or rebirth. I mentioned that other Indian religions, like Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, accept samsara as well, but they do interpret it differently. Like Buddhism, for example, sees samsara as the continuity of consequence through the domains of existence. So basically, it's a fancy way of saying your karma follows you through each period of life and determines how you come back in the next life. So it's more of a consequence. But as we'll learn when we study Buddhism, God willing, there is no Atman. The Buddha denied the existence of Atman. Even that is an illusion. All you really see are the consequences of karma moving from existence to existence. As I said, it's ultimately a meaningless process. The word samsara does not appear in the Vedas, and there is no clear concept of transmigration or rebirth in the Vedas. There is, however, the idea of a re-death, of a dying again. That appears, meaning which would imply that, you die again in the next existence. So I guess you could say it implies maybe the possibility of rebirth, coming back again, but it's not clearly enunciated in the Vedas, in the oldest Hindu scriptures. Liberation from moksha, liberation from, how do you free yourself from this cycle of death and rebirth? Well, there are two ways. You can either go beyond it someplace, to some actual place, or you can realize that it's an illusion as well, that the cycle of death and rebirth is really not, once you realize that you're Brahman, the ultimate reality that underlies everything, even the cycle and death of rebirth, that you're Brahman, that there's really not, you realize it's an illusion that anything is kind of going away and coming back over and over again. It's really nothing. At death, the Atman can take one of two paths. We see here on the PowerPoint, the way of the fathers and the way of the gods. The Pitrayana, the way of the fathers, or the Devayana, the way of the gods. Pitrayana, you can see pater or father, padre, Pitrayana, way of the gods, the way of the fathers, and the Devayana, the way of the gods. In the first one, the way of the fathers, the Atman passes into the smoke of the funeral pyre. Because remember, Hindus burn their bodies. They don't typically bury them. So you go into the smoke of the funeral pyre, and eventually your Atman makes its way through space to the moon, where it stays as long as its merit allows, whatever that means. So, I don't know what that means. I don't know. If you're a bad person, you stay on the moon for a long, long time. If you're a good person, I guess you don't stay there that long. You're allowed to move on. But anyways, you go up to the moon for a period of time. Then the Atman returns to the earth into a plant, which has to wait to be eaten by a man. The Atman will then pass through the plant that's eaten, into this man's sperm. And once that sperm impregnates a woman, bang, boom, bim, the cycle continues. You're born again. That's how it all works. And this is interesting because, in Western culture, they kind of conceived of it the same way, that a man's sperm actually contained little versions of a human being. And that's how they explained what happened, because they didn't know in the ancient world how pregnancy happened. And so that's what happened. The sperm would come out, and the little man, I guess, would break out of the sperm and start growing within the woman's uterus. You see this same kind of idea. In Hinduism, the man eats a plant, and the Atman is in the plant. It goes down into his sperm, and the sperm delivers that to the woman's whatever, because again, they didn't know in the ancient world, and the cycle continues. The person grows and the cycle continues. In the second version, the way of the gods, the Atman does not go into the smoke. The Atman goes into the flames of the fire of the funeral cremation, then into the sun, then into the moon, then into lightning, and then finally is led by a non-human being, which, whatever that is, some kind of demigod, semi-god, something, angel if you want to call it that. But anyways, some kind of non-like being leads the Atman to Brahma, the god Brahma, and I guess Hindu heaven, which you might call Hindu heaven. Samsara is the consequence, as it says in the definition, of karma. Karma. We can talk about karma after this. I should talk about before it. Well, anyways. Which is the driving force behind the cycle of reincarnation. Every karma is an action which has either a bad effect or a good effect. In fact, that's what the word karma literally means, an action or a deed or a work. So it has a good effect or a bad effect. Every action has an effect that has to be accounted for either in this lifetime or in a future lifetime. So that's what determines if you haven't accounted for all of your karma, whether good or bad, in this lifetime, it's going to determine where you end up in the next life. If it's good karma, then you'll end up at a higher level of existence. If it's bad karma, well, then you're going to have to suffer in a lower form of existence. Samsara is about time. It's the time of the universe constantly repeating itself in cycles. And for Hinduism, there are four, well, I guess the smallest unit is a yuga. A yuga is a smallest period of time, I guess you could say, and it's a name for an age. A yuga is an age of time. And time is divided into 4 yugas. This is in the textbook. You have 4 yugas, which make up a time period, one time period. And then I think you have 1,000 yugas, or it's called a Maha Yuga, is a great time period. It's a great yuga. So you have 4 yugas, time periods or ages. Then you have a great age, the Maha Yuga, and then you have 1,000 of these great ages, and that's one kalpa. And that's called a 1 year of Brahma. That's considered, that period of time is considered, which is a very long period of time, is considered like the equivalent of 1 year in the life of the god Brahma. So this basic division of 4 yugas or ages, each age gets progressively shorter. You start out, the first age is like the perfect age, and it's a long one, and then each of the 4 ages, once you get to the second age and the third age and the 4th age, it gets shorter and shorter and worse. Things get worse with each progressive age as you go down from 1, 2 to 3 to 4. Because Dharma is becoming incrementally and increasingly more violated in each age. In the first age, Dharma is perfectly followed, but then by the second age, it's a little bit less, the third age, a little bit less, and then finally by the fourth age, Dharma has disintegrated. So the first age is the best, the classic age, the first yuga. And typically, according to Hindu timekeeping, the first age is about 1.7 million years long. So it's a very long period of time. At the first age, there's only one god worshipped, and there's one Veda. So interestingly, there's monotheism. There's only one god, not many gods. So even Hinduism admits that in the perfect age, there should be only one god and only one scripture, not 4 Vedas. There's no sadness or sickness. All worldly desires are immediately satisfied. And then as you get to the second and the third age, things get worse and worse. You have more gods, a multiplicity of gods, which is not a good thing. You have more than one Veda, which is not a good thing. The Vedas get written down rather than being passed on orally, which is not a good thing. And you come to the last age, the 4th age, which is called the Kali Yuga. And this is the worst age to be in, where you have many gods, several Vedas, virtue is at its worst. But this is the shortest of the ages. It only lasts 432,000 years, in case you were wondering. And guess which age we're in? Mr. Watkins. Yes, we are currently in the Kali Yuga. So remember that when you go and pump your gas and look at the price and or go to the grocery store and worry about inflation. Yes, we are in the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is believed to have started in 3102 BC with the Battle of Kurukshetra in the Mahabharata. The Battle of Kurukshetra initiates the time of the Kali Yuga, the final age. So we have 430-some thousand years to go, or 20-some thousand years to go. At the end of the Kali Yuga, there will come a godlike figure called Kalki, who is really another of the avatars of Vishnu, the god Vishnu. He will come riding on a white horse with a flaming sword. And he will bring about the end of the Yuga and the beginning of a new classic age. Okay, so this period of this Mahayuga will come to an end, but remember there are 1,000 more. So you'll have 999 more after this one, or however many more that whichever Mahayuga we're in right now, until the end. And then that'll be a kalpa, but then there'll be a period of destruction where the whole cosmos is destroyed, but then it will start all over again with more Mahayugas and kalpas and stuff like that, on and on and on and on. This also, in case you're wondering, this period of 1,000 Mahayugas is believed to take around 4.3 billion years. So it's a very long time. And at the end of that, as I said, you'll have the beginning of a new kalpa with a new lawgiver. The lawgiver for our period of time is this man Manu, like I talked about in the lecture on Tuesday. But Manu, the lawgiver, and then the next kalpa will have another lawgiver, new lawgiver. So it'll be a different situation altogether than ours. Again, notice the connection with other religions here. The same kind of symbology takes place because Kalki is this guy riding on a white horse with a sword. If in Christianity, if you read like the book of Revelation in the Bible, which talks about, it's a book of visions about what could be the end of the world or something like that. It's probably about the Roman Empire's persecution of Christians told through symbols and visions, but some people read it as the end of the world. But there is this figure who comes to bring about judgment on the world, riding a white horse. Somebody it's believed to be Jesus of Nazareth. But so you see the same kind of symbols being used across religions. Oh, I got you. Okay, thank you. Actually, why did my thing go off? Oh, now it's going off, of course. Thank you, Ms. Dietrich. Okay, so I'll pass on to karma, but not today. I'll just do that on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. God bless you all. You too, Miss. Have a good day, sir. You too, sir. Thank you. All right. Have a good day, miss.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good day. Have a good day, miss.
Have a good weekend.
Good day, you too.
Thank you for the challenge.
You're welcome. You're welcome, miss.
In there.
Have a good day. See you, miss. You're welcome. Good day, Miss Moses.
Professor Dunn,
Yeah.
do you happen to know where the financial aid offices or is there one here?
What kind of office?
The financial aid.
Oh, financial aid. I'm sorry. I honestly don't. Hold on a second, though. Actually, I think I have a map of the campus here, but I don't know if it shows where particular offices are. Actually, what am I doing? Let's use my computer. All right. See here. There we go. Missions and aid. All right. Financial aid and tuition. Excuse me. Okay. Financial aid and tuition. Estimated tuition. Blah, blah, blah. Student financial aid office. Okay. There we go. Okay, Campbell Hall.
Okay. Do you know where that is?
No, but I can find the campus map and look for it. Campbell Hall. Let's see here. Wait, isn't Campbell Hall like right there? I thought it was. Campbell Hall, number 7. Yeah, it's because we're in 14, which is No, that's Julia Ball. We're 22, which is St. Bernard Hall. Yeah. So you just walk, you walk across there, that breezeway,
Yeah.
and it's right there.
Okay.
It's right over there.
All right. All right. Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
You're welcome, sir. Whoops.